Hello there and welcome back to a brand new video on the Master Moldy channel. Now, you've already seen my Venator mock. However, last time I showed it to you, I'd made a few different mistakes. I'll try and put some images on the screen to help you, but it turns out I'd used too many of certain pieces when I used Studio. Now, I made sure that the palette I was selecting bricks from only had the exact bricks that were in the set. However, it turns out if you copy and paste bricks, they do not come out the palette and you're actually pulling them just from a random library of bricks. So I in fact used two lots of bricks that there were only one brick of, and I used two of them each. And some bricks there were only 8 of, I used 14, especially with some of the wedge plates that I definitely overused. So I have fixed that. The model that's actually on Rebrickable is a complete alternate build, which means it uses no extra pieces, and I could have just included them as a modification, which in fact I originally had to before I realized what I'd done. But now it's a complete alternate build. You don't need to buy any extra pieces, which tends to be how I build my mocks, as I don't want you to have to go out of your way buy extra pieces on Bricklink, and especially some of the pieces might cost a pretty penny. So I've now reconstructed the Venator, and this is the one that you'd be building, so I decided to build this and show it off in its own video. But before we get to that, we are so close to 500 subscribers, so I'm going to ask you, please do subscribe if you haven't done already. 95% of you haven't subscribed, so if only a few of you were to subscribe, I'm sure we'll definitely hit 500 subscribers by the end of the year, and honestly, that would make my year. This channel started off very differently. I might have a video talking about it towards the end of the year, but I'm happy now that the channel has become a Lego channel, and I get to build not only mocks for you, review sets, which I've got a few that I'm looking to get on Black Friday deals, and just talking about Lego in general. I see also that you really liked my Easter eggs for the new Lego Marvel short, so I'll probably end up doing the holiday special for Star Wars at some point. Stay tuned. I'll try and drop that this week, and turn on notifications if you do want to know when my videos go up. So I do really appreciate all of you that subscribe, and if you enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like. Now it's time to take a closer look at the Venator. And as you can see from the top, there's nothing too drastically changed. I mean, I don't think you can in fact spot any differences from the top. Perhaps the corners here where a wedge has been taken out. There were no 4x4s used on the original model. In fact, there weren't enough of them for me to include a wedge here. So the first thing I had to do was get rid of the wedge that was covering this corner. And it doesn't look great, but as there were no grey pieces underneath, it actually doesn't look too bad, and it's one of the minor details that aren't noticed. There are a few more wedge plates, like the 2 grey I used on top of this light grey, the 2 dark grey. So I've just replaced that with another big light grey just to thicken out the bottom. And again, there was another wedge in there which I've just replaced for a different sized wedge. Now, there were 2 changes which are pretty obvious. One we'll get to in a minute. But the first one is these turrets on the side. It did use a piece that only one came in the original set, so I've completely changed it and instead used 2 of these Technic pieces you can see on screen. And actually, I really like this model a lot better, because what you can do with it now that you couldn't with the original piece is get some blaster pieces. Of course, the Venator shoots blue lasers. If you've seen it in the Clone Wars or in the prequel movies, mainly Revenge of the Sith, you'll know blue lasers, and they're not the most common flick-fire missiles. I don't even remember which set I got these in, but you can get these blue flick-fire missiles which fit into both sides of this. So again, this is repeated on the other side, you can see, and it just makes it look a bit better on display, especially if you've paired this with a few smaller ships. I mean, the gunship for this one is about 1/4 of the studs, so I'm not sure how many miniature ships you can in fact pair up with this, but you could probably have a separatist ship right next to it, like the Invisible Hand or the Malevolence, and that would go great with this Venator. So it would be nice for Lego to release something like that. I know in 2009, before we actually got the Malevolence set, they did release a somewhat Midi scale build for anyone that had completed the quest for R2-D2, and I'm not sure how many people know about that. That will be very interesting to explore in a future video, but for now That is the closest thing we've got, and even that is about 1.5 times the length of this ship. So I have to check how they scale to each other in universe, and perhaps I can build that for you if you don't know what it is. But the final difference I made compared to the last video, and I'll quickly go over all the other details if you didn't check out that video, which you can, it's on my YouTube page still. So be sure to head over there and give it a like if you really like the model. It's one of the only videos you can technically like twice. But the other change is on the bottom here is the base of the ship, and this is responsible for holding up the whole thing. So I had to make sure this was as secure as I could make it. Originally I had some bricks coming out the front, and even though the grey piece that was holding it only came one in the set and I'd used two, it still wasn't that secure. So instead I've moved that grey piece up to the middle. It's just on jumper plates, and I'm not going to show you too much how that works because obviously you need to buy the instructions if you want to build it yourself. But it's being supported by 2 Technic pins and a 4-length axle, which definitely secures it, especially in the 1 dimension, and just means you can't wobble it without, as you can see, wobbling the rest of the ship. So I'm very happy with this mock. This is definitely the best mock I have made, and there's a few interesting techniques like these Technic pieces on studs. It's a completely legal technique. I know there's somewhat of a blurred line between legal and illegal techniques, and a load of people don't understand them, but as far as Technic goes, as long as it's only connected on one stud, so there's only one clutch point, it's perfectly legal. The only problem is when you start connecting multiple studs, and especially with Technic bricks, they're literally 0.8 millimeters different to the snot bricks, so you can't even use them together, which is something I only found out very recently. So if you want to know more about legal and illegal techniques, drop it in the comments. Perhaps towards the end of the year I will do a video on that, just so you know which techniques will and will not be hurting your Lego bricks. But as far as this model goes, it is such a sleek design. I'm not sure the camera does it just as much glory as it does deserve. You've got these giant panels at the front which use a similar technique to the Superstar Destroyer. I think it's the same sort of angle that's created, however it's done very, very differently. And if you've already purchased the instructions, you'll know exactly what I mean, because it's not something I see Lego doing anytime soon, but it is really secure, completely legal. Once again, all my mocks are legal, as there's no point building something if a brick's going to snap in a few years' time. So there's some very interesting angles, especially with the top bit here. You can see I've actually used this Technic hinge on a clip and bar hinge, which gives it a slight angle to the front. You don't want it too sloped, but I didn't want it just to jump down to the front windows. And you've even got the windows just through this gap here, which you can see in the image on the left are in fact windows on the Star Destroyer. Now, as for the 3 stripes on the back, I did mention I tried to get 4, 5, 6. I never remember how much Lego put on their model, but they copied it across to the UCS version. However, the reference image I was using in the end does only have 3 of them, and it does look cool enough. There's no point trying to get more of these plates and tiles on the wing if I don't need to. So I thought 3 was the best number, and especially staggering them up like so, it just looks really cool. And again, it's another angle. There's a lot of angled bricks. You've got each wing here on the left and right. This is also not only an angle on the X-plane, but also angled up so that it's thinner on the end and has a bit more height in the middle. Of course, you've got these angles from the wedge plates here, which I guess are more with the system scale of building things, as they're only really on a 90-degree angle, but they're also an angle for each of these headpieces. You've got the slopes at the front here, and you've also got them 2 round pieces on top. Now, there is a bunch of work and time that goes into building these mocks. If you want to support the channel, please do go and buy them, as the instructions themselves are £3, but all the bricks you need to make this here in the UK, if you were to order them right away on Bricklink, only come to £47. And with that said, you will save yourself £2.50 if, instead of buying the printed tiles, which technically are on the instruction manual for anyone who has the original set, you just buy these 2 plain 2x2 round tiles. So You have to change that once you copy over the pieces to Bricklink, but it saves you about £2.50 and means this whole model, instructions and bricks comes to just under £50. So you'll even have enough money to go out your way and buy 2 of these blue blaster bolts to put in the side, as I have, because it really does complete the model. And the detail here is just unreal for this size. There's some things that haven't been as accurately portrayed as they would in Lego, like the Republic logo here is just a gold stud rather than the dark red and tan markings that you see on the actual Venator. I'm sure Lego would probably have released this as a tile with some printing on, so there's nothing much I could do about that, but I do have the uncovered electrical panels that you see on both sides of the Venator. Of course, we've got 4 gun turrets, that's how many there are on the Venator, so I couldn't be caught slacking and only include 2 or 3. I had to include all 4 ready to be angled, and you can actually position them each individually, which is something really awesome, especially if you're acting out your own battles. I'm sure you can get some trans blue pieces or perhaps even a stud on the end there to get these laser bolts to stick on these lasers. But there are plenty of pieces you can add here, and really it's for you to display. If you want it in battle, you can have it in battle shooting its lasers forward or perhaps out to the side, and even these ones can be in the adventure. Now for the engines, you can see they're a bit smaller than the model. The whole ship is smaller, so I couldn't get these 2 as accurate as I'd like, but to be fair, they don't look too different to the actual Venator's engines, so I'm very happy with how this model's come across. There's a few exposed Technic studs which I'm sure could be covered up with a few extra pieces. As this is an alternate build, I did strictly limit myself to every piece in the set, and that just means that I'm not adding any pieces to this model. If you do have the Playscale Venator, and perhaps with the new ships coming out, you're running out of shelf space, that's the main reason I chose to downsize this model. It was taking up half of one of my shelves originally, and because I only have 3 or 2.5 shelves to display my models, I just decided to scale it down. I'd rather get a few other models with it than have the giant Venator, and that really is the only thing stopping me buying the UCS version. I just really don't have the space for it, and I also don't have the money, as it is a pretty pricey model. But even if I did manage to get it, I just wouldn't have anywhere to display it, and it's a very expensive model just to pull apart. So I hope you enjoyed this model, and once again, drop a like in the video if you did enjoy, and subscribe for more awesome Lego content. And may the bricks be with you always.